Hello and ni hao. Here's a new episode of Business Life in China. Today, our guest is Greig Charlton from 24/7 Tickets. Having worked for various Fortune 500 companies in the UK, Greig moved with his family to Shanghai in 2009 and took a couple of years learning the language and culture at university before embarking on his first business venture, Shanghai 24/7. Greig then co-founded 24/7 Tickets, which works with every major local and international promoter and venue in China, scaling from 4 to 50 people and from $350K to $6 million in sales in 3 years. Woo! Yeah, now I know why he moved from the UK to China. So, let's watch the first episode about his product 24/7 Tickets. Can you please share what is your Chinese story?
So sort of bit of personal sort of background that I've been in China since 2009.
Wow.
So quite a long time.
Yeah.
We originally planned to come here for about 4 or 5 years and then go somewhere else, but because of the business and because of sort of what we're doing, ended up staying for longer. I originally came over with my then girlfriend, now wife. She's an international school teacher. So we came over. I worked in banking in the UK. Sort of needed a change, and the sort of career opportunities for me back in the UK were I could move to Toronto, I could move to Jersey, I could move to a couple of places around the UK, but there was no real opportunities for me to move over to China. And at that point, we were like, well, this maybe is the opportunity just to kind of go somewhere completely different. We'd always wanted to go to China. We had some friends in Shanghai. And so we literally, over one weekend, having a few beers, just thought, you know what, let's go to China. So I handed in my notice, and I handed in her notice, and then we left about 6 weeks later. And arrived, and for those first couple of years I did some consultancy, still worked for a couple of banks here
in Shanghai.
Here in Shanghai, and then went to university here to sort of learn the language, or try and learn the language, try and learn a bit of the culture, and really sort of work out what my next sort of move was going to be. And then after a couple of years, maybe a little bit less than that. So I've always been very interested in the sort of live music scene, and when we arrived, before sort of WeChat and before sort of that side of things, if you were a successful promoter and you had loads of money, you could get your music out there, you could fill up your sort of gigs, and you could do pretty well, right? But if you didn't have that money and you didn't have that backing, it was very, very hard for you to kind of promote yourselves. There was no real sort of platform to say, hey, with this band or with this artist or whatever, and come to our sort of gigs. And for us, myself and the original co-founder of what was then called Shanghai 24/7, we sort of looked at it and thought, actually there's maybe a space where we could help people find really cool stuff to go to, and also help promoters and artists and galleries or whatever find those users.
So let's discuss 24/7 Tickets. What does your company do?
So we're a social commerce platform that connects users to the very best things to sort of see and do in mainland China, and now in Greater China and some of Southeast Asia. Essentially what our whole sort of aim is to make you, as a very busy entrepreneur or a very busy business person or a very busy student or whatever you are, spend less time searching for stuff and more time actually doing the things that you want to do. So we use technology to really help you find the stuff that you want to go and see and do, and facilitate the actual payment and the booking very, very easily, so that you can book something on an afternoon and go to it at night. And that's our whole aim. to sort of simplify that process, discovery and then actual booking and payment.
So let's talk about your competitors. Who are they and how are you different from them?
I think we cross a lot of space, a lot of spaces, right? So we have transactional ticketing. It's like, I want to buy a ticket, I'm going to follow a link, I'm going to buy. And then we have the community side, which is, the WeChat community groups and stuff like that. And then we also have like the social side and the content side. We have a team of great content writers, some of the best in, I would say anywhere, but certainly, in this area, they're very good. So we in each of these sort of spaces, we have competitors. So we have, for example, like the ticketing side, Damai are the biggest. They are the Ticketmaster of ticketing in China, right? Ticketmaster of China, ticketing in China. But and they, they're massive. They're owned by Alibaba. It's they and they're good at what they do, and they have been around a long time. They know the space very, very well. But they are transactional based. People go to Damai to buy a ticket. They don't particularly go to Damai to discover, really, and they don't cross the verticals where they sell at festivals and events and stuff, but they don't do experiences, they don't do travel, they don't do that sort of stuff. And then you have the the community side of stuff, where you have like sort of Douban and people like that, and they find it very hard to turn one of their users into a transaction. And now the reason for that is because you go to Douban, you go to some of these community apps or sites, you're not there to buy anything. You're there to be a part of the community. And then so therefore when something is shown to you to buy, you sort of like, I'm not in that sort of mindset, And then you have the content side, which is, a lot of the websites and apps. It's just purely content. Again, they have a very similar problem to the community guys, in that people aren't sort of in the space to buy. They're not ready to buy, right? I'm reading about this certain thing. Oh, look, buy this. This site isn't a transaction based. It's a confusing experience for them. What we try and do, so obviously there's lots of competitors in all those things. What we try and do is sort of bridge that, with social commerce, with community, and with content, and we sort of say to our users, look, we are a ticketing site, we know that we are transactions, we know we have the backup of these promoters we work with or whatever, but hey, you're also part of this community which we also run, and this content is being written by the best people in Shanghai or Shenzhen or whatever. Now that sort of grouping hasn't really been done, and we feel there's a huge space in the market for people to be, the brilliant thing about events, experiences, attractions, all these things, they're inherently social things, right? If you go to something like this on your own, you generally sort of want to meet people, right? You don't. Most people don't go to a thing on their own and don't want to speak to anyone, right? And like put their like headphones on or whatever and then blanket. So people want that sort of interaction. What we try and do is say, hey, look, have that interaction before you go to this thing. Okay, have this interaction before you go to this thing. Be in a group with people that are going to the same thing, have the same interests, and maybe meet while you're there, and then afterwards maybe carry on that sort of conversation, and we will show you more stuff that is similar to what you've been to, and maybe next time you can all go together. And that is, to put it simply, what we sort of try and do, and that's why competitors, yes, there are for sure, but we feel that our sort of our space is that currently anyway there's not a huge amount of competition there, not with the sort of way that we're doing it with the community and the social commerce side.